it do? Beard Gang, Bacon Bits, beautiful people, your girl Poet back for another edition of Women Crushing It Wednesdays. If you're new to this, well, it's simple. There are women doing really dope things, not just in the DMV, but all around the world. And my job is to make sure you meet them, you greet them, you grow, you glow with them. And today, Spotlight no different. I have the pleasure of being in the presence, energy, and company of Christina Sturdivant Sani, DC native,
yes,
Ward 7 stand up, she loves y'all, journalist. I mean, I love the quote on your IG, doing it for the ancestors.
Right.
Yay! So I got to know you. You wrote an amazing article for the city paper that basically talked about the lack of black representation in DC media, especially print.
Yeah.
So can we talk to even how you got to writing for the Washington City paper, and how did that article come about?
So I've been writing for almost, it's going on 7 years now.
Wow.
For the first 3 years, I was freelancing, just writing all over the place, just as much as I could, just to get clips and to get money. And then for 2 years, I was a staff writer at DCist.
And you made a benchmark, landmark, historic mark there.
As far as I know, I was the first black staff writer at DCist full time. And at that point, it had been around for more than a decade in DC, but there was never a black full time writer. So that was something. And I don't even think there was another DC native at DCist either. So kind of like both of those things. So I was there for 2 years, did a lot of breaking news. I think I left with 1,700 clips because it was breaking news, so it was 3 or 4 stories a day. Mm-hmm. After that, I was on a panel, and then I met the editor at City Paper, and so that's how I started writing for them and Washingtonian Magazine and City Lab and all these other publications. As far as the underrepresentation of black journalists in DC print media article, it came about kind of slowly because I kind of didn't want to do it at first because I was nervous about it. But just based on my experience at DC as being the only black staff writer there, a lot of anxiety, a lot of questioning about, am I writing these stories because I'm black, or I should be writing these stories because I'm black, just battling, those two sides of it there. And then just knowing that there weren't a lot of other black journalists in local media. I remember when I met Kayla, who's the only black staff writer at Washington City Paper, she emailed me, so I didn't know she was black, white, or whatever. So I just kind of assumed she was a white girl. Then I met her in person, and I gave her a hug when I met her because I was oh my god, another black writer.
I understand that.
And I'm not even super emotional person, but I was Kayla, okay. Then I gave her a hug. So then I was there are not enough of us here. So and then the Washingtonian, you remember the Washingtonian T-shirt campaign?
Unfortunately, yeah. We must.
So that was the last straw, and I was I have to write about this, and then I did the whole article to explore why there aren't more of us in
writing
print
about
media.
us. And our
writing
stories?
About us when DC is still majority black, even though not as much as it used to be. So.
And then that segued to this amazing essay contest that you're doing, so that DC natives and their stories can actually be told by them,
right,
for them, and hopefully educate some of you.
Yeah,
so can you tell me a little bit about that?
So the DC Native Essay Contest, actually at first, so I was asked to just come up with any topic for an essay contest, and I chose being a DC native, which at first I thought was too simple, but the responses that we've got, people are dying to tell their stories, and it's really cool too because there's no age restriction. So when I'm reading the submissions, some of it is things that I remember, Unifest and all these things, right? And then some is before I was born, how DC was, and then how it is today. So and then also I grew up east of the Anacostia River. Not everybody did, so obviously, so just getting a collection of different stories, because just because you grew up in DC doesn't mean you have the same story, and I want to make sure people learn about different types of DC and what DC means to different people.
When we share our stories, things change,
mm-hmm.
and when we don't, well, we see it.
Right.
I think I shared with you an article where somebody said of the 21 things every DC person knows is to stay away from Anacostia.
No.
That should not be what we are writing.
Right, exactly.
When we're writing the narrative, especially of such a city with such history.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things about DC that you could write about, and the fact that our stories kind of get murky or diluted, it just, So thank you as a person that reads your work.
Thank you.
Thank you for talking about us and sharing our stories, and hopefully educating some other people along the way. But you made it bigger than that. What's these whispers that you're working on, a citywide curriculum for future journalists?
Yeah, so it was so after I wrote the City Paper cover story, I was on the podcast, and I just you know, when you have an idea for something to do later, like when you're more established in life, I was like,
always do it now.
Yeah, at some point in life, I want to help, you know, middle school, high school kids write. But then a couple like DCPS like teachers reached out to me and was like, oh, can you speak to my class? It was like a 6th grade all journalism class at Kelly Miller. These little girls, and I was like, oh my gosh, like they were really cute. They asked me tons of questions. We spoke, and then the teacher wanted me to come back, and so. At the same time, I had a fellowship where I was telling them that my son had wrote a blog for DCist, and when he was 8 years old, and it just like, he thought he was a celebrity after he wrote, like he got paid for it and everything. And so for Greater Washington, which is a local blog, I told them that I could start like a kids column. But then once I got more responses, I was like, maybe I should make it its own entity so that I can not only partner with Greater Washington, but all of the publications that I have relationships. So basically the idea is to partner with schools and publications to get kids published and paid for their work, because their work is valuable. There's no reason why they shouldn't get paid right now. And then that'll hopefully, you know, get them into careers as journalists in the future and cover their own stories and news and things like that.
And that's why she is a woman crushing it this Wednesday. I always ask, how can the village help you help these babies and in turn help all of us?
So right now I'm looking for schools or teachers who I can partner with if they have any students who want to write for local publications. And then I'm probably going to set it up as a nonprofit, which always means like money. So like either straight cash or like grant writers or people who can help me like fundraising, things like that. So. Yeah.
And there you have it. And as always, where can we find you? Because they need to follow you in order to feed and pour into you.
I'm C Sturdy on Twitter. That's SEESTURDI.
There you have it. And that's why she is a woman crushing it this Wednesday. We'll be back next week with an all-new rendition. You know, a woman crushing it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Info below. Send it to me. We want to see you. We want you sitting here. It's WPGC 95.5.